Hey y'all, it's Chimdi. So I have been working remotely at my job for 5 years now. So let me be clear. So I have had 2 separate jobs and they've both been working remotely. So essentially most of my professional career, which is only 5 years, has been remote. I went to undergrad 4 years, grad school 2 years, and in my graduate, final year of graduate school, I started internship that turned into a full-time job. I was remote, stayed there for 4 years, and now I'm in a new role, been there for about a year, that is also working remote. So if you're about to start a new remote job, if you're thinking about working remote, if you're thinking this is something that actually be really great for your lifestyle, this is just a video that for things to keep in mind, ways that you can be successful so you actually can leverage the role and the job to help meet your personal professional goals versus kind of getting bogged down by the things that you might not have realized come with remote working. So here are 3 things that address that. So the first thing to keep in mind if you're going to work remotely is that you are just not going to be close to your coworkers unless you make an effort. You can be email friendly with them, you can have calls with them, you can do video chats with them. It is just not going to be the same as being there in person and being able to quickly turn over, ask a quick question, quickly go grab lunch with somebody, just chat, literally by the water cooler. All those small things that lead to building relationships, you're just not gonna have that if you work remotely. There are ways to get around that. So what I do at my organization is I actually intentionally set up one-on-ones with anyone who I don't know. So basically anyone who I'm reaching out to because I need them, because I'm working with them on something, and this is my first time reaching out, I'll be like, hey, so-and-so, I actually need your help on this evaluation thing, but also can we set up a one-on-one so I can just get to know you before we even kind of get to the work stuff. I'm in a pretty big organization, so that means that I'm pretty regularly having these one-on-one conversations and getting to know more people in the organization and getting a sense of the scope of work that other people have to deal with, their perspectives on the organization, where other people land, and the different things they see and experience, which is giving me a full understanding of the organization as a whole and how my role fits into that. And at the same time, and more importantly, it's actually getting me close to people, because it just doesn't really happen if you're not in the office every single day. So that's kind of a con to be aware of, is that you're just not really gonna be close to your coworkers unless you make a real effort. But if you do make that effort, in general, people are pretty responsive to it, and you can end up building some really great relationships. So that is the first thing. So the second thing to keep in mind if you're gonna be working remotely is that people can't really see how hard you're working. If you copy people on emails, they might be like, oh, this girl's sending out a lot of emails. Or, if you're constantly on calls or in video chats, they might see you. If you're constantly sending out producing products, they'll see that. But because you're not literally physically in the office with them, I know for me personally, and this is maybe just me, but I don't think it is, if I don't see someone in the office, if I don't see them working, I'm they are taking a nap right now. They are not in the office, they're not doing work, they're getting their nails done. My default is to assume, unless you show me and tell me otherwise, that you are just not doing work. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I don't think that's just me. I think for people, if they're not directly working with you, if you don't make an effort to pull them into your work, they just don't know what you're doing and they're gonna assume you're not doing anything. So you really need to be very intentional again about letting people know what you're getting into, making a point to be very collaborative and pull people into your work so they can be like, oh, she's working on this and she's working on that. And they get a sense of the stuff that you're actually doing in your role. Because otherwise, if you're not ever kind of regularly communicating with them, if you don't have any kind of shared projects with them, they just don't have a sense of what you're doing. And I think the default is to assume that you're not doing anything. This is especially challenging if this is someone who is, a direct report, direct supervisor, someone who you're working with who is in charge of your evaluation and things like that, people who are in charge of making sure you're growing professionally in the organization. They need to be able to see that you are really working hard and see what you're passionate about, see what your interests are, so that they can be looking for opportunities, pulling things, putting them on your plate, giving you new chances, new ways to kind of grow yourself, because otherwise they just don't have any kind of place to land on. I know at my organization we make a point to do regular check-ins with our direct reports and our supervisors, but that isn't necessarily the case of our organization. So if you're working remotely, just really make sure you're making a point to basically pull people into your work so they see what you're doing and they see how hard you're working. And you have people who can basically vouch for you when it comes time to, get that raise, get that promotion, whatever it is. They can be the ones to be like, oh yeah, she's great, I love her. Or when they meet you, when they meet your boss somewhere, they can be like, oh, you work with so-and-so, they're the best, and that kind of builds up a reputation for you in the organization. So the third thing about working remotely, people are always like, oh my gosh, it's so flexible, and it is, and that is obviously the best part, and I'm gonna talk about that a little bit later, but you get it, it's flexible. The thing about working remotely though is that it's really easy for your work to bleed into your life. And this is the case for people who just, work in an office. They go to the office, they work there until 6, they come home, they work more. You can have work bleed into your life even if you do have an office you go into. But I think it's especially hard if you work remotely because work is literally your laptop. Hopefully your work laptop is different from your personal laptop, but if they're one and the same, then you're literally your life is your laptop and you stop doing work on your laptop to watch Netflix on your laptop. So it becomes very just all your tabs, or it just gets very messy and very confusing, and it can get to the point where you're like, oh, okay, well it's like 8:55, I'm gonna just like roll out of bed, bring my laptop to my body, and then just start working. And like, no, like it's just very, very unhealthy. Basically, you want to create very clear delineations in your life. This is a personal space. This is a like workspace. Like you want to have it be very, very separate. Otherwise, it will just bleed in. You'll find yourself working insane hours, odd hours. You'll always be checking your phone for like work emails. You'll always be thinking about deadlines. You'll start dreaming in work. I've had that happen where I'm like, I work all day and then I go to sleep and then I dream about work. Then I wake up and I work again. And it is like, that's not healthy. That is just not healthy, and it's not sustainable. So you just need to be really clear if you work remotely to be, okay, I leave my bedroom and I go into my living room or my kitchen and this is the workspace, or I go to a cafe, or I go to a library, whatever it is, and I work in this place. And then even though it's just my laptop, I close the laptop, I shut down the laptop, and then I do work somewhere else. Unless you're intentional about it, it will just bleed into your life, it'll ruin your life, and instead of it being this thing that's like super freeing and giving you all this flexibility, it'll become this albatross around your neck. Just be very, very intentional about separating your work from your life if you are gonna work remotely, and especially if you're using the same materials for both of those roles. So those are 3 things to keep in mind if you're gonna be working remotely, if you're thinking about it. You might not be close to your coworkers, people won't necessarily see how hard you work, and you might let your work bleed into your personal life. Now, of course, the other end of that spectrum, which is the reason everyone wants to work remotely, is that it's super duper flexible. You get to make your own hours, you get to like have the working styles you want, you can work in your jammies, you can work with just, titties out, like you can just live your best life working, and you don't have to worry about commuting to the office every day. It's all the really great stuff that comes working remotely, and it's why I've continued to do it job after job, and why I still would want to have remote jobs after this one. I wouldn't be against going back into the office and working, but I'm like totally fine and super cool if I literally just have an entire career that's just remote work and I'm never in the office. But I just want to make that video because I've been doing remote work for a while, and I know a lot of people are like getting more into it. It's becoming a thing that's much more trendy now. So just something to keep in mind if you're working remotely. I hope that is helpful. Y'all give me a thumbs up if it has been. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. Join the Hold Me Like family. I'm like super close to 2K subscribers, so like help me get there. That would be awesome. I appreciate it. All right, I will see you on the next video. Yeah, thanks for watching.